I have to be honest and say that I am not exactly the biggest fan of the Planet of the Apes franchise. If you saw me during my Godzilla X Kong review, I did state that I am not exactly a big fan of apes because they are usually very relatable to humans, and I found them very overused and boring. I will say that maybe the Planet of the Apes franchise is a little bit to blame to that. But despite my those opinions, I still have kind of like a certain kind of respect to the franchise. I mean, obviously, the first movie, it is a classic. It has some memorable lines, and it was something that many people will find it shocking and refreshing. And then as the movies goes on and goes on, somehow it gets kind of like even sillier and sillier. Although I still like kind of like the second movie. I kind of forget what was it called. I think it was Beneath the Planet of the Apes. And of course, we got, what was it? Some of those names escapes me. Oh yeah, also there is the Tim Burton remake of the Planet of the Apes. It is kind of forgettable, except for the ending. Although many people always kind of cry foul, saying that they hate the ending of the remake. But personally, not me. I actually find it kind of like a refreshing, how can I say, remake to make it a little bit more modernized. Maybe because people are not very keen that they have a statue that turned Abraham Lincoln as a monkey, but I know that what they were going through, so I don't have any problem with that. So no, it's not because I hate Abraham Lincoln. No, not because of that. I just thought that the idea was there. And then it came kind of like the new remake of the Planet of the Apes, and that one I did watch a little bit more thoroughly. I do have few opinions here and there, but at the end of the day, I did find those movies pretty solid. Although my biggest complaint that I always have with these movies is that they were pretty long. They extended to kind of like too long that they kind of. I did find them kind of like watching it kind of like a chore, but still some of the writing and some of the characters, in particular Andy Serkis playing as Caesar, I think it was Andy Serkis, or he was it was kind of like another actor while Andy Serkis do the motion capture. It is still outstanding. But right now, many years have passed, and now they got the director of the Maze Runner to direct the new movie, which is Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I was a little bit like should I watch it? Maybe I should watch it for the channel, but at the same time, I'm not a fan of the Planet of the Apes, especially considering that I had my ape stuff with Godzilla X Kong, in which I was disappointed on how much they go biased with Kong. But still the trailer looked nice. I didn't see so much information about it. I just brushed it off like, okay, this is gonna be more Planet of the Apes thing here and there. And well, lo and behold, here I am. I watch it. I was lucky that I could find it kind of like a showing on Thursday. I even had, so there, I'm back. And I gotta say, it was solid. I was entertained by the movie. I came out liking, because this movie has a lot to like in terms of what the movie is. Although basically, of course, it's not perfect, and I will indeed say that the running time, it actually kind of feels it. The movie does feel very, very long. Maybe with 15 or 20 minutes of a cut, we'll have doing fine. But but honestly, well, despite that, it was a little bit of a chore. I did went through, and I will say that again, if you get invested on a movie, the running time, it will go through, and you wouldn't technically feel it. It depends on how much investment you're gonna go through with it, but still, it's still watching it. It's kind of like a chore. It's almost like people are kind of saying that it's almost like exercising. Well, there you got it. And well, I will say that the movie was good enough for me that I'm gonna try to give it my best to not spoil too much. This is gonna be one of those in which I'm gonna try to go as briefly as possible. But here goes. So Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is kind of basically kind of like a sequel to the other movies, in which we know about the monkey named Caesar, which was the ape protagonist from the last movies. So in this one, it takes place generations forward. Everyone is dead. Caesar is dead, but that ape, Caesar ape, he leave a legacy enough to be remembered as a messiah, as a god, as for the apes. And thankfully they gave us an introduction that because of everything, a virus spread out, and but technically a virus spread out because human bioengineering, which it made apes smarter, while the humans began to regress and becoming well more primitive. I have kind of like a mixed feelings. It's about if it was a virus or something like that. I don't know if that was in the original book or the original movie or something like that. That the regression of humanity is because of a virus. I think I don't. This is the thing. I barely remember all those movies because I don't care too much about the Planet of the Apes franchise. But anyway. Yeah, generations comes, the apes take over the world, they all have kind of like their civilization, not entirely, I would say that it's not entirely, futuristic as you might think about it. It's more kind of like early primitive, let's say, because they kind of, let's say that it's kind of like the natives from South America, or to put it kind of like an idea. But anyway, basically, still the story centers on this ape named Noah. He is, he's kind of like the relatable protagonist hero that he has, that he's a little bit of an underdog. He has his friends. He loves his mother, but he has kind of like issue with his father because he tries to go through his expectation, and he's going through a rite where it is kind of like a coming of age moment where he has to tame eagles because his tribe, or in this case his clan, they train eagles in order to help them, kind of like bond and hunting and all this stuff. But then one day, another clan of apes, in which they go around in the name of Caesar, they invade the village, they kill his father, and they capture everyone in the village except for Noah, who he miraculously escapes alive, and he decides to go on a journey to rescue his friends, his mother, and the other prisoners. And along the way, he meets an orangutan, an ape. What was his name? I got it right here. I think I did. Raka. An orangutan named Raka, who he has much more knowledge about Caesar. He says that that other clan is basically twisting his beliefs that in which apes should not get along with humans and all that stuff. And at the same time, he is also followed by this human woman who basically she's kind of like following him, and well, no, it's like I don't know, and something like that. And then but of course that human woman is a little bit more than it is. But basically now both they have kind of like their own goals. and they have to reach the that other clan in order to save those apes. That's the kind of like the premise in a nutshell. Although there's a little bit kind of like more than that, even though it kind of takes its time. I think I will say that probably kind of like the first hour is kind of like the journey within, and then the human woman kind of reveals something more, and then of course she. This is where the movie technically kind of a little bit changes, especially when they reach the title Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Let's go a little bit, with most of the character. Like I said, Noah as a character, it is a good protagonist as an ape. He's not exactly a revolutionary, but I would say that he's kind of like it's kind of like the coming of age kind of hero that you get through. He doesn't have kind of like the most heroic point of view there is. Yeah, there are some moments that he's not perfect. But you still kind of root for him because he does care for his mother. He does care for his friends, especially since she has kind of like a love interest. And I like that, and it also helped with that. Well, I did kind of mention something about my problem with apes, that they're a little bit too human-like, but maybe I can give it a little bit of a pass on this one, because that's kind of like the point, especially since it kind of earned it many years ago, since it's about, apes. But there is something about the acting as well as the CGI that it kind of makes it passable, but I'll get to that when I get to the cinematography segment. So, other character, and the guy Noah is played by this guy named Owen Teague. And then there is the orangutan ape, who is kind of like he claims himself that he's kind of like the last survivor of the ones who hold the true teachings of Caesar. He's played by Peter Macon. I like that guy. He's kind of basically like the Obi-Wan Kenobi of the movie. Then we got the character who is the human woman. The human woman is called May, and she's played by Freya Allan. Let's say that if there's a little bit of a weakness to the movie, it's her. But honestly, I am kind of in a catapult that I might gonna retract something like that, because the first time I see this character and I begins to act primitive, I kind of didn't buy it, but it's mostly because of what she was wearing. Her wardrobe felt a little bit too out of place for something about Planet of the Apes. She really looked a little bit too modern. And if you remember, even in the original Planet of the Apes, the humans who are regressed to primitive minds, they were wearing, primitive rags. Even Charles Heston began to wear a primitive robe, even though he kind of regressed a little bit into his moment. At first, he also was wearing a spacesuit, but because where he come from and then he regressed into that. So, but the moments, considering that was a movie that was set in kind of like more generations, I found it a little bit out of place. And then, of course, more humans show up, in primitive clothing, and she really stick out like a sore thumb that I was kind of actually having kind of like a problem. That is until she revealed herself. When she reveals her kind of like her true colors, this is where the movie kind of has at 180, and the more it advanced, I was like, it was the movie kind of earned itself its apology of why she was wearing those clothes. As for the character itself, she was kind of like interesting in one way or another. I will say that her relationship with Noah, she is interesting, it kind of brings out, the whole, Planet of the Apes thematic about the coexistence between ape and human, and how conflictive it is. And honestly, this is something that Planet of the Apes always explore: the complicated relationship between human animals, or in this case, human apes. And it's not a kind of black and white. It always goes into a very, very gray, but a little bit dark territory, in which it's almost like they hold kind of like no middle ground here and there. Although, yeah, the friends are there, something like that. There's also, I do also, oh yeah, and of course we got the villain. The villain is called Proximus Caesar, played by Kevin Durant. He's the main antagonist, as let's say that it is this, how can I say, tyrant who is building a kingdom of apes, and he wants to hunt the humans, and he basically is kind of like a fanatic of the teachings of Caesar. It's so much that he even proclaimed himself as Caesar himself. Although it kind of becomes a little bit silly, because when he shows up, he just the first things that he just say is, "It's a wonderful day," and when he says that song came out of my head. It was like, "Oh, it's a wonderful day." Oh my God! It was a little bit kind of like silly and all this stuff. Yeah, and he also has kind of like a right-hand troop man, which is kind of like the general, which is, I don't remember what was the name, but it's basically a gorilla. But anyway, he's kind of like the typical tyrant of a movie. Although it's fine that they didn't explore that. And of course, during the second half of the movie, when they finally reach the kingdom, it is kind of shown that he just wants to know the secrets of a vault that that humans had. They lock it, and now the apes kind of like, they can't open it. They even tried to make it explode, but nothing. But either way, during the course of the movie, I'm not gonna exactly reveal what's inside, but the way that they get there, it was like, why didn't they did that before? I don't know. It is something that kind of makes me think when I came out of the movie theaters. Okay, now I think I go through the cinematography, in which this is a movie in which it had to rely a little bit heavily on CGI, and honestly, CGI it easily can be kind of like soulless. Funny thing, while watching this movie, I saw that awful trailer of the upcoming Mufasa movie, and my God, how soulless and ugly it looks. That is sad. It's a sad state of CGI that, my God, does Mufasa look awful. And I don't know why they went through that, when considering that The Lion King, the remake, is one of those Disney's worst. I freaking hated that movie. No. You know what? I'll refrain, because I got that Mufasa trailer was awful. But I'll put this in consideration that this movie also had to rely, on the apes looking at CGI as possible, which personally is kind of like a mixed bag. But but honestly, I'll give it credit that it looks better than what you anticipated, because at least the cinematography, the scenery, it's beautiful for a CGI spectacle. The apes actually looks really good, considering what they are. Although there are a few moments that you can notice the CGI, but And it also, and honestly, I think that what also helps it is that most of the people who are acting in it, they had tutelage from Andy Serkis. Andy Serkis and Andy Serkis is kind of like master the art of body movement, pantomime, and all this stuff. I mean, he was the dog on what was it called? The Wild. Let that make you think. But so you can tell that the people really catch on his teachings, and it shows that some body movement they did it right, and that makes us ignore that they are CGI. Although I do complain that there are a few moments in which, honestly, where the CGI lacks more, it's on the birds. Like I said, the movie actually centers itself that our protagonist clan, they are centered on raising eagles. And one of the running themes that the movie has is that Noah has kind of like this problem that the eagle, his father's eagles, they don't get along with him. They kind of hate him. They scratch him, and then but that is a moment that he feels that he needs to learn in order to to showcase that he's coming of age. But going with that is that sometimes when the eagle shows up, you can notice that it's an obvious CGI. So honestly, this is where the CGI kind of falters a little bit. Those eagles look so synthetic. That's kind of like a complaint that I do have. But other than that, still, the fact that I said that the movie is very long, it still kind of has its pacing. Because it doesn't make you bored. There's a moment, of course, they're walking here and there, but it doesn't overstay its welcome, and then you come out with a moment in which, oh, they're ambushed. Here comes when they say something interesting and something like that. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that there's another human in this one. He's played by William H. Macy, which I'm not gonna exactly reveal too much what he is, but let's say that for some reason he kind of looks like a Steven Spielberg if he just gave up in humanity. That's the best way I can describe this guy. But anyway, that's pretty much the cinematography part that I did say. The pacing I did say. Thematically, like I think I already mentioned a little bit that, yeah, it is a little bit of a kind of like a coming of age of a new protagonist they did kind of reveal that this is going to be kind of like a new set of trilogies. In this case, I think they're going to showcase on the point of view of Noah. He did come out with a coming of age story, and while I will say that what the ending does kind of opens possibility for sequels, is not exactly necessary, because it's still proved to be on its own in order to use it. And I wouldn't mind if the new Planet of the Apes will center in another one, because it actually showcased the point that the movie had. Not only is it about the Planet of the Apes, but also it showcases kind of like the complicated relationship between apes and humans, and this is something that I actually like, in which there is no black and white. It's not even for the two, and there is not exactly kind of like a righteous hero. Both sides, they both can be as relatable, but they suck. Like for example, the apes, they do all these things about conquering, but they will never realize that the way that they're doing, they're being no better than humans, and still humans are still being the arrogant human part of the species that we do, that we came first, so we do everything about this. So that part I like, even though that theme is a little bit secondary in this kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. This is where people might gonna go a little bit, maybe the human aspect wasn't necessary and all this stuff. Although I can see why it was kind of like needed, and needed. And you know what? I kind of accept it. I kind of accept it for what it was. And so I think I've already talked too much without spoiling much, and I think that's kind of like the better way. I prefer. I do that especially to movies that I just came out actually liking it. And you know what? As someone who is not a fan of the Planet of the Apes, that was kind of like a solid start. Maybe I might not seeing some of the problems. I just see some problems here and there, but considering the movies that I have seen lately, it could have been much worse. I mean, look at me. Instead of going to see Fall Guy, I just went to see Tarat, and boy, that movie was garbage. But I did mention that it's a garbage, and I don't regret it, because man, that ending was something to talk about, and I already made a vlog out of it. I will say that I enjoyed that movie much better than Godzilla X Kong, and that's saying much, considering for me that I say that I'm not exactly a big fan of apes. But well, also I'm kind of glad that. When the movie that I went through in the movie theater, it wasn't exactly packed, but there was a good decent of humans. A good decent amount of humans. I'm talking like if I was the ape myself. Well, whatever. I was just monkeying around on my brain. So Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I do give it kind of like a high recommendation. It's a B plus, or if I'm being generous, A minus. So there you go. Hail Caesar. That's all I have to say.